Back at it again after finishing the paint, doing all the cut and buff on the bodywork, and trip to Japan with a family and a new hip replacement. So we're back here now, and I am polishing trim, all the stainless, making it mirror reflective. So it was in pretty good shape to start. Some little pits and a couple of dings here and there that I had to hammer and dolly out. Some surface scratches. So basically what I did there was after I got it straightened, some more stuff that's done, and I sanded it. I typically started with 400 and then I went to 800, wet sanding it. Any surface scratches, everything came out. And then I have never polished anything before, so this is all new. So I picked up a little stainless steel kit from Renegade Products. Took a little bit figuring out, but it actually works pretty well. The red pad here with a little not Harbor Freight, but an Amazon buffing wheel. So the red with the black works really well. And then the pink with the yellow is the second step, and basically brings it to a mirror shine. One thing that took a little while to figure out was these pads weren't cut very well, and it was kind of weird to use. So actually, once I realized, I put the rake on it and loosened them up a little bit, then everything worked really well. So it took a little trial and error to figure out. And then I've got a little guard here out of my old engine crate, just to catch some of the stuff that was flinging off the buffer. So I think I'm about a dozen or so pieces in, and on the exterior, I think I counted there was 70 or 80 individual pieces of stainless. So lots of work, but we'll be ready here to go on before we know it. So after that, I think the next is getting the chassis all back together and underneath the body and put the body on for the final time. So that's the update for the moment. Chassis together, ready to go under the car. Exhaust is all Cerakoted. Everything is torqued to spec. Build update. Body's on the chassis. Starting to put some of the trim on. Getting ready to put the rear bumper. I've got the deck lid on. The gaskets in. All adjusted. The rear bumper, smoothie bumper. The rear tail lights I modified so they've got the blue dot in them and they're LEDs. What else? The dash. Everything is attached under the dash, the wiper motor, the Restomod AC unit was a huge pain in the neck to put in. The idea, this right here was the easy part, believe it or not. I actually had to make the lines, feed them through the hole, put the unit in, and then cut and make the lines on this side. So not ideal, not really serviceable, but it's getting there. Front end starting to come together. A bunch of vacuum lines and coolant lines on. With the radiator and the transmission and the oil cooler lines all plugged in. Breathers, everything here just gets black zip tied together, so it's all loose at the moment. And that reservoir to the pump for the supercharger likely gets shortened, but I need the thinner on to figure out the final measurements on that. Let's see, got the cover here on, got the drip rails on. All the trim, I'm using this Eastwood flexible strip caulk, works pretty well. Just around the holes. Just a small spot of that. Basically keeps any water running in the holes in between the trim. prevents rust and things like that in the future, and it helps with rattling. So it's under this. Basically anywhere where there's a piece that just gets screwed to the body, I'm using that. So it's getting there slowly. All right, I'm about halfway done on the final assembly here. It's been a slow process, mostly waiting on parts as I get to one thing and realize I need to order a part in order to get 3 more things on. So just how it works out. But back end is all assembled, the body's on. Let's see, what do we got here? The smoothie bumper. That was a bit of a pain to put on, but I got it sorted. Rear tail lights here. The gas tank all installed. Tail lights have been changed out with LED. I've got the badges, some of the trim work on. Doors are assembled. Gaskets are in. The power door locks and power windows are installed. I was originally going to try to just put the door gaskets on and bypass all the door windows and everything, but turns out that the gasket actually goes up under here. So that necessitated putting the windows and all the trim pieces on. And I was waiting on a door latch for about a month and a half, so that slowed everything down. But everything's polished and put back together. Slowly getting there. The AC unit is in from Restomod Air. It's a very tight fit. The access panel is actually here on the other side of the fender. It took several days to get that installed. I actually had to make the lines as I installed it. I ended up crimping them outside the car and then running them through. Huge pain, but they're actually capped off right there. They're all fit and tight, so they'll actually run through the fender. They'll come through here, up around, and then there's a bulkhead down there. And then they'll come through here and then to the cooler or the condenser, and then into the AC unit on the motor. So everything else, all the front fenders are loosely mocked up at this point. Again, waiting on parts. I need the inner seals for the inner fenders before I can tighten everything down and get it adjusted and get the hood on and get my spacing. So, story of the build, waiting on parts. But overall, I'm just doing little things as I'm waiting for those items. Pretty pleased with the way that's coming together. So once I get the inner fender gaskets on, then I'll be able to continue on. I'll probably mock the front the front extension pieces here up, as well as the splash pan, and get it all in a good spot. I've got the radiator stack sitting over there ready to go in. Splash pan sitting here. And then all new parts for the front fender extensions down there. So, getting there, albeit slowly. Step back here so you can see the progress. One of the other things I need to do is pull the front shock off, get it up in the air, and then measure for front wheel fitting it. Now that I got everything finalized. Likely, I'm debating between 18s and 19s on the front. I'm going to do 20s out back. But I don't know. We'll see once I get a tire up there and my wheel fitment tool and see exactly where I'm happy with it at and where I like the look and the stance. Make sure I'll cycle the suspension up and down and right and left. Make sure I've got clearance and I've got the right wheel back spacing so I don't have to worry about any rubbing. But Slow progress, but it's getting there. It's hopefully here by the first of the year, I'll have everything together and I can start wiring. Obviously I have to finish all the sound deadening. I only have it on the roof at the moment and a little bit on the firewall, but I've got enough for inside and the trunk. So that's one of those you can slowly do as you're waiting on parts. Parts arrived. So I was able to continue on the progress. Let's see. This is actually a pretty trick tool here from Verified Fabrication. I've got to go borrow or buy a couple of tires to figure out the exact size. But that's coming. That'll be here in the next week or two. I've got my gasket installed for the inner fenders. I had to take everything back off. You can see I've got the hose lines ran up. I've got the AC lines made. I'm actually waiting on one fitting. So that's in progress. Front bumper and the grill and all the extensions are on. That was a huge pain in the neck. Literally everything had to be unbolted and loose for it to fit in. Nothing's tied up in there yet, but it's getting there. And obviously I've got the radiator stack on. I've got all my lines connected. Got all the plumbing for the supercharger done. I've got the AC and heater cord lines all done. I'm really happy with the way everything came out. You see the supercharger coolant line running cleanly through there. I'm still waiting on a couple of parts for the power steering lines and then the brake lines to tie all that together, but should be here next week. And then that's the last bit of plumbing. Obviously I still need to tie some lines up, make sure everything's zip tied out of the way, but I've got a steam port, overflow tank. I've got to get that line cut and tied in. But it's coming up on the holidays here, and I should be done and starting wiring here pretty soon. But looking good so far. Oh, the cover. I'll go here and show. So I decided to sand this down and respray it satin, leaving the V polished. Really pleased with the way that came out. So that'll be my cover. The bumper sitting here, I gotta fit that as well. But yeah, so next up here is tire fitments. Order some wheels, and then on the ground and on to wiring, and then first start. Just finished up the last of the plumbing. Everything is installed, permanently mounted. So I made upper and lower radiator hoses. The lower, as you can see down here, is a aluminum tube with 290s in it, TIG welded. It's a spacer. Everything else, I'm very pleased with the way it all is tucked up in there. I got a lower radiator tube. Found a piece that at the parts store that works. Cut it and made it work. I got the power steering lines all connected. It comes up here into the cooler. Technically this is a transmission cooler. It's a little bit larger. I ended up on the right side, so I used that. This one over here in the radiator, you can see down there, I just got it capped off. Obviously I've got the transmission cooler down here, a much bigger one with its own dedicated fan, and an oil cooler, as you can see underneath here. Much bigger flow. I made the brake lines, got those all installed. Everything's looking good. I polished the lines up a little bit so they look nice and clean. Got everything zip tied up. The steam port line is done. The vacuum line I got connected. tied everything up so they're nice and clean. So overall, I'm very pleased with the routing. There's a ton of plumbing on this thing and hoses. So it ended up going everywhere I wanted it to. Serviceability is a little bit challenging, as you can imagine, with anything custom, and you're trying to hide a lot of the lines. But we'll deal with that when we get a debug and get the first 500 miles on this thing. Get your lines all tied up in there, enough room for the headlight. I got the bumper mounted the other day. Basically, we are good to go. So next step here is I brought all the wiring out. Actually, insulation is next. I'll finish putting all the insulation in. And then massive amount of wiring. All these boxes have wiring in it. This is full of wiring for the engine harness and the computer. I've got a wiring harness from American Auto Wire coming, as well as their ridiculously expensive crimper tool. And also ordered the wheels. So the wheels are en route. Excited to see what those look like. I've got a few small adjustments. Obviously the windows need to be adjusted. I got the driver's side door needs a little bit of adjustment, and then I got to put the lower rocker guard on as well, which was holes in the fresh paint. That's always fun. But once we get the door on the other side adjusted perfectly, we'll get those installed. So basically, little fine adjustments, wiring, and then interior. I'll probably end up building some panels as I do the wiring, so I know where everything's routed. So it's getting close. See how far I can get in this rest of this winter. And then summer, I probably won't work on it too much with vacations and the boat and kids and all that fun stuff going on. But I suspect maybe fall, depending on how the interior goes, fall into next winter is realistically, this thing should be buttoned up and roadworthy at that point.